What's up, everybody? We are back with another Luminosity Talks episode, and today we're going to be talking about the competitive side of gaming, and with me I have two legends from different game genres, so quickly let's just go around and introduce ourselves.
So I'm Shiv. The game I specialize in is Apex Legends, and I've been playing that for the last 2 or 3 years, I would say.
Hello, I'm Froggen, and I play League of Legends, and I've been doing that for like the last decade, pretty much.
And I am Ginger, and I've been playing Super Smash Bros. Melee for about 14 years now competitively, and that's the game that I specialize in. So, with all of our games, we've been playing games for so long, what is your earliest memory of gaming from your childhood?
When I was really young, like 5 years old or something, I was like, I went to like a friend's house, and I think it was the Nintendo 64. I remember playing like GoldenEye and stuff like that, you know, like Mario Kart and stuff on the Nintendo 64. And ever since then, I was just, like hooked. I always wanted like my own console, right? So parents bought me like a GameCube, a Nintendo GameCube, and I also remember like the first game I played on that was probably like Legend of Zelda, like Ocarina of Time and stuff, you know, Mario Kart Double Dash, Super Smash Bros. As well, Melee as well, same as
Heck yeah.
I think. Yeah, I was like, these are like the few of the games I played back in the day. It was just so fun, from what I remember at least. At least those were like the first 2 consoles I played. Yeah.
I think the very first game I ever played was pinball.
Oh, so
Oh, wow.
You know, it's just downloaded on the PC already. I guess I started out with Nintendo 64 as well, playing a lot of Mario and Zelda as well. Yeah, that's pretty much the earliest memories I have of that. And then I went on to being a PC gamer ever since, where I played just Counter-Strike and then switched over to League of Legends.
Thinking of with my earliest memory is I played Mario Kart, but I was like so young that I didn't understand how it functioned, and I would just like sit on my mom's lap and she would essentially like play it for me, but I was like so into the game, like I thought I was playing. But yeah, N64 is one of the first consoles I ever played. I also had a Jurassic Park video game that must be lost to time at this point, that I used to play on the PC, and like there was some section of the park that was like locked and you had to pay for it, but I still had fun like running around. But I mean, we've obviously been gaming essentially since birth, it sounds like, all of us. But where did your competitiveness come from? Because we're all, you know, elite gamers or whatever you want to call it at this point. So how did that kind of start for you guys?
Yeah, true. I mean, growing up, I was always like, sports-wise, I was always big into sports growing up. You know, like physical sports. You know, football or hockey or tennis or whatever. You know, cricket over here.
For me, it started out with football. I started playing on a team when I was 6 years old, and then I played for like 10 years. I quit that when I was 16. It's the same time I started playing League of Legends, so that kind of adds up. But that's at least where my competitiveness comes from. And then I'm also really into other kind of sports. So with friends from school or at school, we would play like all kind of sports, like badminton, tennis, whatever it would really be. And I've just always been into sports and the team aspects of what comes with it. I
like how you mentioned the team aspect too, because I mean, you obviously play a team game. And for me, tennis was always my big sport that I played. I don't necessarily know if that's where my competitiveness comes from, but like I play Super Smash Bros. Melee, and it's just a 1-on-1 or a 2-on-2 game, which funnily enough, so is tennis. Yeah, one thing I wanted to mention with where my competitiveness comes from. So I did kind of play sports when I was growing up, but my main love was always video games. And I had a brother that was 12 years older than me. And I kind of started gaming pretty seriously. I say seriously, but I was like 6 years old, and like Melee had come out. We would play it all day, every day. But when you have a brother that's 12 years older than you, like, I can't be competitive with him in anything. It's like he's bigger than me, he's faster than me, he's smarter than me. But one cool thing about gaming is like, when I select Falco on the character select screen, like, he is just as strong being held by a 6-year-old than he is, you know, by a 30-year-old or something like that. So gaming sort of allowed me to level the playing field, because it's not like a physical thing that you have to worry about. And so I really think that I enjoyed, like, we would go to some tournaments. I'd beat like college kids when I was like 7 years old, and it was just like, yeah, it's this cool, like, kind of leveling the field sort of thing. But in your competitive career, is there one moment in particular that stands out to you?
I mean, for Apex, the game I play mainly, I think we played in the, like, there's a EMEA, championship, I believe it was. So that's like all the EU, like CIS teams, and that tournament we came like 3rd place in it. It's just like things like this, like where we do really well and stuff. Like these are things I've pretty much, things that have stood out for me at least, like recently. Cause like, I mean, I've been streaming. I've been mainly a streamer for like 5 years, I think. And then like, let's say my comp career is like 2 years, or 3 years or whatever. Like all these tournaments I've done were pretty much just like recent.
2014, I created a new team called Alliance, and we started out really, really poorly in the spring season in League of Legends, where we just lost like 4 games in a row. We went 0-4, and then we managed to turn that whole thing around and eventually end up winning the LCS summer split and qualifying to the World Championship. So I think that whole experience was like really a standout moment to something I have accomplished and that I'm really proud of. Another standout moment is in 2012. There was a tournament that we didn't qualify to in CLG EU, and then all the fans like came together and budgeted a trip for us so we could go to the tournament, because they had a bring your own PC qualifier. So the winner of that qualifier would get seeded into the group stage as well. And back then it was basically like there was no system for anything really. It was just a lot of tournaments. You just try to qualify to them and then you go play them, and basically your paycheck is winning the tournaments. And then the fans paid for that whole trip, and we ended up winning the qualifier, and then we ended up winning the tournament after that.
That's amazing.
So that's also a really, really
no way.
moment.
That's so sick. What the heck?
Oh, and on top of that, it's also we played against Moscow 5, which was like the best team at the time, and nobody had beat. And we beat them in the finals, and we beat them in a group stage game. And the group stage game is the biggest comeback that has ever happened in League of Legends, even to this day.
Oh my gosh,
so it's like a lot of special moments at that time.
You're like giving me goosebumps talking about this. That sounds awesome.
Like these...
Oh, also, and then on top of that, a lot of my friends from Denmark went to the tournament to watch me play as well. So it was just all the friends I hang out with and play League of Legends with. They went to watch me play at the tournament as well.
That's awesome, man. Like these comeback moments, and like these are just the ones you live for. Really. It's just crazy. Yeah. These really close games as well. It's just insane.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Man, you know what? I'm gonna mention 2 moments too. So there's a moment where my career sort of took off that a lot of people know me for, which is there's a major tournament. There's sort of like 5 major tournaments that happen throughout the year, or we kind of call them super majors, which is kind of silly, but still. It's called Big House, and it happens in Michigan, which is the state that I'm from. So every time I go there, it sort of feels like I'm representing my state. And I was sort of I think I was a top 100 player at the time. I think I was ranked like 49th in the world. Nothing terribly impressive. And in my bracket path, I had to play against I think he was ranked number 7 in the world at the time. And in Melee, that's like a gigantic gap. There's like no chance that you're ever going to be able to do anything. And we were already in the losers bracket in double elimination, so it's like everything's on the line, and here I am having to play this guy who's probably going to beat me. But they put us on the main stage, which, in person at these Melee events, there's like 2,000 people at these Super Nationals in the crowd. And like, I'm the hometown guy who's just like kind of happy to be there. I have to play against Westballs, who's amazing. But then I ended up winning in a really close last stock match. And all my friends were behind me, and the entire crowd erupted. Like, my subscriber noise for a long time was just like the crowd noise of everybody popping off after I won. Right. And it was just so surreal. I had won some big matches and had crowds pop off for me before, but like nothing to that magnitude. And still to this day, like if I ask my stream community, if I'm just like, hey, where do you guys know me from? A lot of people are like, I heard that you beat Westballs, so I like had to come check out the stream.
Oh, right.
That was a cool one for me. And another one that stands out too is it was another Big House, funnily enough, but it was 2 years prior. So it was in 2015. and one of the best players in the world at the time, again a top 10 player, his name was Drugged Fox, and he was just incredible. He was going on a tear. He was beating like top 5 players at the time. People were like, this guy's just destined to be a top 5 player. Like, he's incredible. And I had him as my round 1 opponent of like the first round of pools. So that just meant I was seated really low because they don't have good players play each other right off the bat. So I was like a nobody, not top 100. This is 2015, 6 years ago or something.
The underdog.
The absolute underdog. Yeah. But I was just like feeling it. That weekend, I just knew that something great was going to happen. And I went into it, and funnily enough, there's a cute little story, is that my practice partners were behind me. I had 2 practice partners that I always played with. They were the only 2 people that witnessed the upset happen. And my friend just like also thought I was going to win, so he tried to record the set on his phone, but his phone like ran out of storage after like the first 30 seconds. So that set is just lost to time. But yeah, I ended up winning. I literally, it was such a huge upset, literally one of the biggest upsets of all time in Melee history. And I walked around, I high-fived every single person I knew. I like called my family immediately afterwards. Like, I was just so hyped up. So yeah, those are sort of the 2 moments, and they were both moments where like it was kind of when I wasn't an established player, but they're kind of stepping stones to how I kind of got here, which was cool. One thing that's pretty interesting, and this is sort of, we can kind of transition into talking about like what makes a high level player and like what separates them from the top level players. So I'm curious because in Melee, there are a lot of top 100 players, but you don't really seriously start winning a lot of big tournaments until you are literally top 10. And I don't know how similar that is for your guys' fields, but what separates just like a good player from some of the literal professional top players?
At the top, it's very, obviously everything's very team-based. You gotta work as a team. You gotta practice a lot, I think. And you just gotta, I think, all this practice, you just have to get yourself in the mindset so that you're kind of, ready, prepared. I mean, in a BR, like a battle royale game, I guess anything can really happen. And I think as a comp player, like playing in these major tournaments and stuff, it's like hugely different compared to like ranked and whatnot. Like ranked is just like, it's basically like a pub game, but like, I guess with better players in it, whatnot. And yeah, I guess like this is RP based and you get a certain amount of kills and placement. It's kind of similar to comp. Obviously, there's a lot more nerves, and that can definitely, there's a lot more on the line, right? I guess so. I think being a pro player, you have to, not let the nerves get the better of you, and you have to just play as a team to get the most success out of all the games that you have, and yeah, that's pretty much it. I think there is a lot of practice behind it as well. Of course, you need to scrim and stuff.
And for you, Froggen, what kind of separates like a collegiate league player, maybe like an academy player, from somebody that's like looking at going to Worlds, so like a real top player in the game?
The main thing is that the ones that are like really good at the game, or they're on the best teams, they kind of know what to do in the game, so they know which decisions to make, and they're playing the right champions, which is a huge thing. For new players, it's a bit more like they might have specific champion pool. They have to work on like practicing certain champions. And in League of Legends, the game changes a lot. So like every 2 weeks, I think it is, there's a new patch, and it can kind of change the entire meta of how you are picking and banning champions. So you have to be really fast at like learning new stuff and then figuring out how they work, and then like be consistent enough with it so it like works in a team environment where you actually can take something away from the games. In lower level gameplay, it's a lot more like random stuff happens and it's not really supposed to happen, and then it just creates like inconsistent practice. But when it actually comes to you play against better players, and then you make these mistakes, and you're gonna get punished for it. So it's mostly like just being able to be like a consistently good player on like the best champions in the game, and then just being able to make the correct decisions. And then, I mean, communicating well with your team is also a thing, but I think that's like, I personally think it's somewhat easy to teach how to communicate well, because anyone can really do it. It doesn't matter if you are like good or bad at the game. You can still like accomplish that aspect no matter what.
Essentially, it sounds like just like being able to adapt to whether or not the champion pool changes or like certain mechanics of the game changes, like being able to, you know, have a wide champion pool and adapt to the situation sounds so important. I was wondering what it's like to adapt to different teammates. And you said that communication is something that you can teach, but do you ever run into situations as a top player where like you have a team member who might be trying to prioritize other things than you, or you have like conflicting ideas about how the game should function and that kind of gets in the way?
Yeah, it pretty much happens in every single team actually, because it's something that you internally should have a discussion about, like everyone together with the coaches and so on. Like it's up to each individual team to like figure out what is best for them and like what's best to do, like where each other's strengths are, all that kind of stuff. It's like the stuff you should discuss and talk about, and then sometimes you're gonna have conflicts where people don't agree, but then you also kind of have to, I mean, it's just something you have to deal with when it comes to team games, that you have to compromise and figure something out.
And so I guess talking about Melee, separating separating high level players from top level players. I mean, obviously, just like any game, there's a lot of things that might do it. I think just like being dedicated, there's a lot of times in Melee, it's a game that for almost its entire lifespan has to be played in person. So a lot of times, like, you fly all the way across the country to go to some tournament, and then you underperform. And a lot of people might be disappointed by that. They just like lose to people they otherwise would have never lost to, and they're just disappointed. They go home, they don't work on anything, and it's whatever. But sort of the phrase that I always use is that you should just be constantly unsatisfied. Like, I go and I underperform, and I don't think like, oh, that sucked, my life is terrible. I'm just like, I never want that to happen ever again. Like, how do I practice and like cover those weaknesses that I just showed at that tournament so that I can become better at those things? And I think just like being honest with yourself and understanding what you need to work on is such an important thing. Of course, like having the time carved out every day to make sure that you're practicing and that you're diligent about that is really important. I will say that some people practice pretty frequently in Melee because it's a very high tech skill level game. But some people just don't have the right practice regimen for them. Sometimes they're just practicing the things they're already good at because it feels good to practice. And it's a little bit more uncomfortable to practice the things that they're bad at. But leaning into that discomfort is something that I think can bring a lot of like high level players that are kind of seemingly one-dimensional kind of into the full, you know, understanding of the game where they're a little bit more well-rounded. And there is no top-level player in the game of Melee that isn't well-rounded. So you're not going to, like, trick them by being one-dimensional. Yeah, so that'd be my advice. But this is kind of a fun question. Out of all esports, which one do you think has the best competitive scene overall and why?
I guess CS, right? Counter-Strike, I would say would be synonymous to esports and would be, you know, be in the history books. I don't know. At least I would say.
Yeah, I mean, CS has such a long history and so many crazy moments in it too, you know? It's definitely legendary.
CS and League both have like pretty good competitive scenes. Whereas like, obviously on the League side it has died with crowds and stuff a little bit because of like COVID going on, obviously. And then Riot has taken the control of all the tournaments, so they get to decide all the venues and like where they go and stuff like that. So there's not that many filled arenas compared to how it works in Counter-Strike or how it worked in the past in League itself. So I mean I definitely like the whole crowd aspect in Counter-Strike, where they travel around like pretty much all year to play their majors and like other tournaments. It's like that kind of stuff is amazing to see. That's always some of my favorite stuff to experience and to be part of.
Definitely. I mean, I am right on page with you. I think that Counter-Strike is awesome in that regard. I think like the crowds that they pull and the arenas that they fill and just like how into it the crowd is so cool. And I mean, that's an interesting point that League doesn't have that year round, because I've thought about like, you know, some Worlds finals, like the scale of the stage and how many people are in the crowd it's like mind-blowing how big League can be. But the fact that it only happens a few times a year is something I didn't really think about. And then when it comes to like best competitive scene, something I think is interesting, of course I'm biased, but the Melee scene, like everybody, you don't just go to the tournament and there's like 10 teams. Like you go to a tournament and there are 2,000 entrants, and you have to, like, if you're a top player, if you're just like a complete nobody that's never entered a tournament before, you sort of have to like work your way through the bracket together, and like, if you're not so good, you get knocked out, and if you're pretty good, you get to keep going. And just like being on the ground floor and feeling just like a community member, even though you might be a top player, is something that I think connects the scene a lot, because we've all been there. We've all gotten knocked out of the tournament really early by some top player, and like as you progress, you get farther and farther, and just like it feels like a joint struggle that we're all involved in, which is kind of cool. But we definitely don't have the crowds that League or CS do, absolutely. So last question here, which is another kind of silly fun one to end on. But if you could choose any other game to go pro in, which game would you choose and why?
Oh, I have no idea on this, man. Honestly, like maybe like a CS or Valorant type game, maybe. I don't know. Just because I've never,
another shooter then,
it.
yeah?
Yeah, another shooter, but like just because I've never attempted it, like 5v5s or whatever. I've just never attempted that type of game, and this is not something I've gone into much. So yeah, it would just be something different for me, I think.
It would probably be Valorant. At least how I look at it now. It's like I played a decent amount of Valorant when it came out, and have been playing pretty consistently whenever I've been feeling like it. So and I used to play a lot of Counter-Strike in the past, but honestly I don't have much of an idea what's going on in Counter-Strike. I think a lot of it is like so strategical, and you have to like learn so many specific small things, whereas in Valorant I'm more up to date. So I guess that would be easier.
Man, I mean, I've always had a love for Counter-Strike, but I have been nonstop watching Valorant for a long time. Are we all saying Valorant? Yeah. Valorant's been great. I don't know. It's a fun game where aim matters a lot, your specific movements matter a lot, coordinating with your team matters a lot, but at the same time, it's like easy to get into. Your abilities have impact. I don't know. It seems cool. I'd like to, for me, I'd like to play a team game, just to prove to myself I could mesh with a team. I don't know. But I think that would be fun after playing literally 14 years of a game where I'm the only one I have to depend on. When I lose, man, I just have to think about that by myself for a while, instead of like having a team that like maybe builds me up, or we like get back into it, or like even celebrating with a team seems cool. There's a lot of cool aspects of team games, and shooters have always been cool. Valorant just fits so nicely.
Yeah.
But cool. I think that is going to wrap it up for us. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to comment down on the YouTube. I'll try to jump in the comments and try to respond to you guys. Make sure that you subscribe. There are going to be more Luminosity Talks that are uploaded to this YouTube channel, so please make sure that you have the notification bell turned on so that you guys can know whenever those pop up. But thank you guys so much, and I'll catch you later. All right, see ya! With you.